Hey, what's up, guys? We have got a massive article from GCORES here. It's actually pretty in-depth. We're not going to go through the entire article because it would take well over an hour to discuss and read through it. But we do have some concept art that I want to go through, and I want to kind of mention some of the important parts of the actual article that they spoke about in this interview with Mao and a few other people in Arknights Endfield. So we'll have a little discuss about that. Let me know what you think down below. Let's take a look to start off with at some of this really cool concept art because it looks really dope actually. Okay, so we've got like a bunch of images here. We've got like some renders, we've got some concept art, we've got some in-game architecture rendering, a bunch of different stuff here. So we can see a little bit of Wuling City here, and they do in the article go over like their design philosophy around how they wanted to incorporate traditional Chinese architecture and give it a sci-fi twist. But the way they went about it was they wanted to remove the idea of just building up with a Chinese vision, but tie it to Chinese text and then work backwards from there. So build a sort of sci-fi landscape and then implement the Chinese architecture on top, which is a really interesting read actually. And it shows that Mao was an architecture student as well when you listen to the way he talks about the actual design, form and functionality of the world. And as somebody who loves the world building of Arknights, you can already see the way they're talking about the design philosophy, right? The world building's at the core of it. It's not just we think this would look cool for the character, the player, and we think this would look cool. Although there's an element of that, they're like designing it in relation to the people that live there and how would they appreciate it, which I think is fascinating. And again, it shows this element of world building because you're not just creating something that looks cool, you're creating a functional world that has a beautiful form as well. And obviously, that's going to be based off how the people live and work in this space, right? So I thought that was really cool that they were doing like they're basing their design philosophy from that. And we can see stuff here as well with Helliger. This is his weapon. They also went into some of the tricks they've used with like lighting in the architecture as well to save on resources but still give us those cool effects of light looking like it's coming from the outside inside in buildings and stuff like that. And they also mentioned a trick that they're using with his whip blade because of how many layers to outfits they've done, which is one of the things this game excels at. They also talk about that, of how in-depth they went with the amount of details that they gave to the outfits and the 3D objects on the outfits. It left them in a position of not having enough, I guess, resources to create something like this where it's fully segmented. So they created like kind of like another trick of the eye there with almost like this frame by frame whip, like tail whip, I think. I can't remember exact wording, that gave it this effect that it had the segmented look without actually having the segments there as well. So they've used a lot of smart, efficient game design to get around potential technical restrictions, because obviously this game is going to be available on mobile as well. And they also went into that discussion around polygons. I think 80 to 100,000 polygons per character on PC and PlayStation 5 and 40 to 50k on mobile, which is somebody who's been gaming for years. The idea of having 50,000 polygons on a character on a mobile device is actually insane. So you're getting round about double on PC and console in terms of fidelity than you are on mobile. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the game runs on mobile. They're specifically going to talking about that in their efforts to really focus on making the game run well for console, PC and mobile. And they even talk about the challenges as well in this article of you know, how overcoming the issues. And they speak on Unity as well, where they actually went to the point of like pretty much rewriting Unity, guys. They talk about actually they've been considered one of the forefronts in engine in the Unity engine now. In regards to the changes they've made to the underlying architecture. You see here, the technical implementation of integrated industrial systems was one of the reasons that prompted us to make more thorough changes to the underlying Unity and architecture to ensure that this part of the game ran smoothly. We even rewrote the underlying rendering framework and rendering pipeline. They talk about like the ribbons and the clothing as well, and all the different new ways of creating the ribbon flow. of giving each character like 4 different sets of animations and tying the ribbons to them, which allows them to have this nice flowing element to all of the clothing items as well. They speak on they've gone in depth with the animations, right? You know, in terms of when you stop, actually having the character slow down and proper turn animations with the characters turning the head followed by the rest of the body. So they're really trying to make that immersive, which is really good to see, especially with these amazingly designed characters. You want them to look good while they're moving, right? We've got this cool concept art as well for Helga. They speak about him being Helga in his prime. They refer to him as the Steed. I don't know if that's just a bad translation or that's actually what they call him in CN. I'd love to know that. Let me know down below. And they also like mention about regarding his outfit, how they wanted to like show the fact in the outfit that there is the military attire underneath as well, which is like really cool to see, right? Like to see that Ursa's military outfit style there as well. In regards to the design of Wuling as well, they mentioned it, you know, obviously having that connection to Yan in Arknights, right? And hopefully that makes me hopeful as somebody who's playing through chapter 11 at the moment, that we're maybe going to see other areas that kind of relate to other areas, you know, such as Victoria, such as Colombia, such as Ursus, all this sort of stuff. I really hope that, because the way you look at it, we're colonizing another planet, right? We're on the frontier. You think about it when like Africa was colonized and the New World was colonized. You had the Brits, the French, the Spanish. In Africa, you had everybody in there pretty much. And I'm be interested to see if there's different areas that reflect potentially different colonization attempts, maybe, right? With that like with that style, that form coming over into Talos 2 as well. So it'll be really interesting to see about that. We can see our Delia here as well. Ajat looking great in the artwork. They did mention that when it came to her, they wanted to really base it around a dress and that, and they actually went out to find like full on like metal wire or something to come up with, like to use as a reference for a dress, you know, and how in Arknights her outfit was more based around the outfit that she got from her parents, I believe, but with this they wanted to give her a bit more of a dress that reflected the geology that the work she's based in, which I thought was kind of interesting as well. They really do break down like the design philosophy in this interview. I'm going to link it down below. It's too long to go over in a video, guys. I did attempt to read through it on a video. We got to like an hour and was like 50% in. I'm like, I ain't uploading a 2-hour video of me literally just reading an article that you guys can go read. But I thought it would be a good idea to bullet point some of the things. Again, this is another render of Wuling here, and we can see like this kind of jade dragon, and they do mention this of in regard to the technology. I forgot what it's called now, the just something or whatever it's called. But basically, you know, the whole element of the water being a massive factor of this part of the game, and how that can be made like a solid jade-like material into a viscous liquid as well. They also do talk about as well, you know, the, let me find it, if I can, where is it? This here with Wuling, they actually talk about this actually being a fortress wall, and they go into the design philosophy about that as well, and connecting it to real life world design philosophies. I'm really interested to see now what the hell's on the other side then. What the hell is on the other side here? What are we defending against here? Like, I am so intrigued to go beyond the wall now. Like, I can't wait to see what's out there. I thought that was really interesting to learn about as well. They go over all this. They go over about the village as well that's nearby. Chimbui Village, I think it's called. And the people that live there. And these are some of the denizens of that place as well. And it having a bit more of a out in the sticks feel to it. They're using water to their advantage through technology, but not using the advanced technology that they're using in Wuling. They're using, you know, water mills and stuff like that, and the local materials to craft their stuff. They've got a very tribalistic look as well. We've got this crane-looking dude who looks like he throws fucking darts on a chain, and then this dude here who looks like he's got like a quadruple rocket fucking firework launcher or something. Actually looks kind of insane. They've got a real tribalistic look to him as well, don't they? Which, like, you know, it's really cool to see some of the concept art as well for the NPCs. We've got some more concept art as well. I think this is for the village. You can see the water mills here as well. So you can definitely see it's got this more rural, salt of the earth look to it, right? Which they said was a thing they wanted to make sure. And it makes sense. They're living out in the sticks. It would make sense for them to use the materials around them, right? To to progress rather than lumping stuff backwards and forwards between the city or potentially maybe even trying to bring industry out there. It would just make sense to use the technology where they can and then build the stuff themselves when it makes more sense, right? So we can see that then it looks like the administrator is standing down here looking onto this area. So it'll be really cool to get to explore this as well. We can see some more design architect. You can really see Haimau's architecture studies coming out in this, can't you? Like, this looks like it was designed by architects, right? And as I say, they're really going to talking about the form, the form factor of the design, how it incorporates the daily life of people. Not just, well, this will look really cool to the player. By the factor of going through that design process, it ends up looking really cool for the player anyway, which you can see here. Again, this looks like something straight out of an architect would do for a proposal for a fucking new mall or some shit. Looks amazing. Got this huge, like, I don't know what it is, like some huge bell or something. They did talk about the wanting to incorporate water everywhere, which is they did a real good job of, which you saw in the beta test, right? Looks amazing. Looks absolutely gorgeous. We can see the beans, the incorporation of the beans, and some different concept artworks here for those as well. And they look gorgeous, right? They're so cute. I'm gonna try and get myself some plushies of these, if I'm honest, at some point. And then again, we've got some more concept work here for the city centre, and we can see the beans once again here. And again, as I say, they do mention in like their design philosophy, Haimau said that he didn't want stuff to just look too traditionally Chinese. He wanted to have that connection to Chinese architecture, but to have a sci-fi twist, but not to look like they just got Chinese architecture and then make it look sci-fi. So he went with connecting this, the Chinese language and writing and using that as a basis to build these sort of new structures, and then go backwards incorporating the more traditional Chinese architecture into it, which I believe that's something that they did in Arknights as well, which is really interesting to see. And it's really cool to see those connections between Arknights and Enfield, and hopefully as somebody who plays Arknights, and I'm sure a lot of you guys want to see those connections and want to see more of those Easter eggs and those threads coming together. And again, please give us a Victoria-inspired area. Please. I'd love to see that. And we've got some NPC designs here as well. We've got the pooping, whatever the frick it is, but it poops and you can pick up the poop. And they spoke about like NPC designs and stuff as well. They even went into, when they're talking about the design philosophy of the city, like talking about people's jobs, right? The different aspects of the society and how the city needs to be designed around those different aspects of the society. Again, that's world building. That's not just, that look cool, let's stick it in there. This is a city that's based around like people, right? It's designed for the people that live there, and then that happens to look amazing for us as well, which I'm a big fan of that kind of world building, right? Because I love lore stuff in sci-fi fantasy. I love to learn about the wider world, the geopolitics of history. It's why I'm a big fan of the World of Terror, and I love it when people don't just go, well, that looks cool, that works. Like, I'm the type of person that when I see fantasy cities within a fantasy setting, right, and you see this city, that's this massive city with all these people in it, and then you look at the area around it, and you're like, well, how do they feed themselves? It's like, okay, they've got no farmland, so they've got to have some sort of trade connection. Is it by river? Is it by land? How does that work? How do people not stop starving? And it seems like that sort of philosophy is kind of there in the way they're designing stuff. Or if maybe not that, but just the idea of how the people live and work to kind of craft the city, which I found quite fascinating, actually. We got, again, some more designs here as well, just showing off some images and like some sketches underneath, talking about the eaves and stuff, and like the overlapping eaves, and this is where the more traditional Chinese design philosophy was like kind of added on afterwards. They created these buildings and then worked backwards, adding in these design philosophies. And then we've got this really cool area as well that just looks actually amazing. Can't wait to potentially explore this as well. It just looks really cool. Looks really cool. And then again, we've got another angle here of like the defensive wall. I believe this is concept art, I believe, here. And then we can see this giant jade dragon. They spoke about how they really worked hard to make the water look good. The interaction with characters and the water as well. They said that's a big design thing with them. They want water to look good, and they want your interactions with the water to look good. They even spoke about they've got 3 different animations of different landings from height. So when you drop down and you land, there's 3 different animations from depending on the height. Again, cool little details. It's really good to hear about. And then we've got this angle of the wall here. So as I say, we've just got like, this goes really deep, right? It goes really deep. They talk about some of the reworks, which you've obviously saw with Serta, seen her going into a striker role. She's become a lot more mobile now, right? When you look at her, she looks like she actually fits in that role a bit more now, doesn't she? Which is really cool to see. And then like they just go over the stuff with the base and stuff like that, which is really cool to see. They say that there is 50 to 60 hours in the game, but if you really want to squeeze out as much and kind of don't speed run it, there's 80 to 80 plus hours, so you might have up to 100 hours worth of content here to play, guys, which is really cool. They also talk in the interview about the idea that they want to make sure the base and the gameplay connects. Because if you remember that big review that came from the CN player, he spoke about how one of his concerns that he felt like that the base and the game, in terms of the rest of the game, they felt like 2 separate entities, and that connection was kind of lacking a little bit. They said they've worked on making that more of a thing, connecting things together, the story pacing, the actual storytelling, animations in cutscenes have been improved greatly, apparently, which is really good to hear, even though they look great anyway. It's really cool. Pacing thing, I think, is great. Even so, somebody who kind of tried to ignore a little bit of the story because I don't like to continue to keep playing stories over and over again. It was really good to hear that the pacing has been improved upon, because I think when you got to that little bit with the L dude and like then the tutorials really started kicking in, it felt like things ground down to a halt. They've said they've made some improvements on the tutorials as well, which I think is a really good thing, because I think if there was one really weak part of the beta that I would point to, I think the tutorials were not done in the best way, if I'm honest. I am a big fan of hidden tutorials, which I suppose when it comes to like the base design, you probably can't get away with everything being a hidden tutorial, really. You are going to have to kind of like dump a bit of info onto people sometimes at some points, I would think. I do speak about, you know, when you first come out of the sarcophagus, that you don't go into the training area now. I think that's become a hidden tutorial where you learn the basics of combat by just going into the game rather than being like, hey, look, this is how dodge works, now do the lift and all that sort of stuff. If you remember playing in the last test, that seems like that's gone now, and it's a more dynamic introduction to the combat basics of the game as well, which is really cool to see. So yeah, they talk about again the coupling of the gameplay of bringing together the base and the base systems and the traditional gameplay, if you will, itself as well. They also go on about the new regional development gameplay element as well, which like organically combining regional exploration, industrial production and trading. Players can accumulate regional development value through various means to upgrade their regional development level. As the regional development level increases, more features will be unlocked in the corresponding region and players will receive rewards in the process. In addition to a new regional currency, the dispatch voucher has been introduced. Each region has its own dispatch voucher, meaning each region has its own currency and exchange system. As the most important item in the regional development system, the regional dispatch voucher can be used to craft equipment needed for operator development, exchange for various important resources, upgrading infrastructure and more. So that's where that's going to be tied to regions, where you're going to need to do that in different regions. So it gives you a reason to build those things up in the new regions, because they are region specific, which I quite like the idea of that, because then it gives the reason to need to do that, right? And then probably access to new resources that are region specific as well, that you're going to need to potentially progress, or new things to build new stuff maybe as the game goes forward. And they say that one way to acquire a large number of regional dispatch vouchers is by supplying goods to strongholds. Strongholds will issue a series of purchase requests, and players can produce goods through the integrated industrial system, trade with strongholds, obtain corresponding dispatch vouchers, and increase the stronghold's development experience. Once the stronghold experience reaches its limit and the upgrade quest is completed, players can upgrade the stronghold and gain a regional construction points. And then he says after the base is upgraded, it will order more types of goods. Players can choose to provide the base with better goods or higher unit prices, obtain more dispatch vouchers, thereby achieving a positive cycle of team production to profit. Money, 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 basically. So yeah, they go over like a bunch of stuff in this as well. You know, as I say, this connection to gameplay and the base building system, and trying to make it more of a an intrinsic connected system as well. They go over the blueprints as well. You know, there are other convenience designs similar to the blueprint, for example. After unlocking a certain industrial age, all simulation tutorials corresponding to technology within it become playable, and there is no longer a restriction on individual points to be forcibly associated with a particular technology. The Wuling region has its own special repeater, which can directly connect to all power facilities within 80-meter radius when placed, including other Wuling repeaters and Wuling power supply piles, greatly improving the efficiency of players in carrying out regional construction in the new Wuling map. So we're seeing like little QOL things as well in regards to the construction tutorials and all that sort of stuff, and not being forced to all these things, which is good to see, and things not being like dumped on you, basically, I guess, in that sense, and being able to access stuff at a more efficient rate, I guess. So yeah, it says all aspects of the story presentation is immediately apparent. Not only have the animations and models become much more refined, technological advancements, there are even numerous technically impressive and complex shots such as close-ups of ribbons touching the characters' bodies and the smooth flowing animation of hands being pulled open and placed in pockets. Many scenes that felt stiff to players during the second test, I didn't really feel that, if I'm honest, have been readjusted. As the story progressed to Wuling, the animation quality has been improved dramatically, showcasing more cinematic level camera work and choreography. But this is really good to hear, right? This is one criticism that does get thrown at Hoyo a little bit, especially in Star Rail, right? Where, and to some degree in Genshin, where there's a lack of dynamic flow to some of the cutscenes. I think that's kind of fair, at least when characters are talking and stuff as well. So that is great, again, for immersion, animation levels. It's always good to see this extra level. Again, I hope we can get this storytelling from Arknights introduced into this new way of, this new vehicle of storytelling through, obviously, the 3D aspect of the game, and we just got to hear from them. During the last test, we often lamented, oh dear, we didn't have to finish this part. Didn't have to finish this part. Although our game, compared to other anime-style games, strives for more realistic style in many aspects of visual presentation, this actually added considerable difficulty to our presentation. However, after the last test, we still went all out to improve these presentation effects within the new framework, which is really good to hear. That if you reading through this, one major thing I've gathered, right, is attention to detail. That's like a core component of the philosophy in this game, right? Attention to detail in the design philosophy of the town. Attention to detail in characters' outfits, layers, nuance. Attention to detail in the weapons. Attention to detail in characters, speed reduction animations, turning animations. They've also spoke about there's unique animations for characters when you're not controlling them, that they will only do those animations to sidestep and dodge enemies when you're not controlling them. So when you're controlling them, it'll have a different animation to give you this feel of like you feel like you're with the characters, which for a gacha game is really good, right? Because when you look to games like Genshin and WoW and Zenless Zone Zero, especially when you have support type characters or like sub DPSs that are basically used to quickly buff the main DPS. So you push to get a character that looks really cool and you want to use them, and then they're on field for a few seconds and then onto the main DPS. The idea that you're going to be able to have these characters on field with you all the time and kind of having unique little animations that they'll only do when you're not controlling them kind of adds this feel, I guess, to the immersive aspect, and like this idea that they are you know, a little bit more living and breathing as well, which I think is a real cool thing that they've added to the game as well. And as I say, like this idea of attention to detail, you know, in the water, in things like the glass. They even speak about Helga's ult, his skill animation, because initially that was going to be literally 3D shield guards coming and beating the shit out of people, but they said that it just created too many issues, like it was just too chaotic on screen. So then they went for that like sort of phased transparent effect that they went with, and they said that came with new problems, as well as that sort of layered transparent effect becomes really performance degrading, and they worked around that as well, which I think with the audio cue of where they're like, oh, as they come in, then being transparent kind of has more aura. I don't know why, maybe I'm tripping, but I think it kind of has more aura. And then they just go on to the concept of the game. When I was conceiving the Endfield concept, I was thinking about it from the premise that Arknights would continue to operate for a long time and continue to expand its story content. After the launch of Arknights, I started thinking about how to develop a second game based on the Arknights IP. When I officially launched the End of the World Endfield project in early 2022, the inspiration I used was a proposal I had made in 2017 when I was conceiving Arknights. It had to be abandoned for various reasons, but I was finally able to pick it up again and think about how to organically combine it with the story of Arknights. I discussed many possibilities with the Arknights development team, and we continually decided to create another story for Arknights, the end on another planet at a more distant point in time. However, the two are not simply connected sequentially. We've conceived of a very long-term plan. The future connection between Arknights and Arknights Endfield, besides the possibilities mentioned before, will also be linked in the way that hasn't been seen before, with both works jointly expanding the universe of this IP. So this is awesome to hear. This is what I spoke about. This simultaneous connection of these two games, right, running together, running simultaneously in a sense, because I've said that even as somebody who hasn't caught up with Arknights' story, right, I want the story to continue. Like, I don't want it to end at Endfield, because I want to continue playing Arknights even when Enfield's out, because I really like Arknights. And if there's a story still to be told, and there's a story that's still to be told that can kind of connect to Endfield in a symbiotic way, fuck, I'm here for it, man. You know what I mean? I'm here for it. So, developing the two projects will simultaneously both will completely redefine settings and storylines is indeed very challenging. During development, we repeatedly checked many settings between the two projects. Sometimes, we even discovered that some content might have developed in an unexpected way, so we also had to coordinate adjustments to the other project. However, because the game genres and presentation styles are different, we'll choose two different directions for our stories, which will inevitably present different styles, but both experiences will definitely be unique, and we'll do our best to make them excellent. Specifically, the end depicts a fantastical future era. Besides fantasy elements that form the foundation of the work, science fiction elements are more prominent, making it more like a fantasy world with science fiction elements. If players want to discuss deeper literacy content and experience more information-dense, intricate, or diverse storylines, Arknights will be more suitable in terms of format. If players want a more exciting, avant-garde, and immersive audio-visual experience and desire a more imaginative world that fully integrates narrative and audio-visual elements, then the End is also a good choice. So what I see from that is Arknights is probably potentially going to give you more complex layers. Endfield is going to give you a little bit more streamlined, fantastical version, right? Which I think's fine. I hope we've got plenty of depth, though, in the game as well. Looking back now, we had many bold ideas that didn't come to fruition. Fortunately, we chose a very long and exciting time frame, and which allowed the two works to make some reasonable design and produce a chemical reaction and unique effect we ourselves did not expect. So I guess this is them talking about them like being interconnected, but at the same time being separate. So as I say, it'll be really interesting to see these simultaneous storylines evolving and how they do connect. So I hope they do. I know they have to think about the new player, but like, you've got this amazing world. Bring it in here and there, right? Bring it in here and there. They do talk about as well how it's their first 3D game, and obviously being their first 3D game, that come along with a bunch of problems and technical issues to overcome and things to learn as well. And that's been a bit of a journey for them. And yeah, I just this is a deep one. I'll leave a link down below, guys, so you can read through the entire thing. But that's kind of the major points I took from it, man. Like, a big thing was the design philosophy, right? You can see their design philosophy, specifically in this game, seems to be about the small details. They talk about, like, the new combat animations, all of these things where they've worked on changing the game, but they didn't rip the game apart. They've they've gone at it with a scalpel. Stuff that needs maybe tearing down a little bit, they've tore it down and rebuilt it back up, and then stuff that needed layering, they've layered and built upon as well, which I think is a really good thing, because the last beta test was fucking amazing. So it didn't need to be like tore apart and restarted again, right? It just needed to be expanded upon, and that seems like that's what the case is. And a big factor as well, as I said, was getting it working on multiple devices as well. So really interesting to see, guys. All we've got to do now is hope we get in the fucking beta test, all right? We've got to hope we get in the fucking beta test. But guys, I'd love to know what you think down below about this article. As I said, I started reading through it, and I was going for like an hour, and I was like, yeah, this is too much. So let's maybe just do a little a TLDR. It talks about a lot of the ideas behind their philosophy on design, technical accomplishments, the massive changes they've made to the Unity engine, technical aspects of things such as lighting and dealing with transparent glass and the animations and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, improvements to the story, pacing, cutscenes, all good stuff to hear, man. I'm incredibly excited. I can't wait, chat. I can't wait. Let me know what you think down below, guys. If you enjoyed the video, it's a bit of a long one. I appreciate ya, and I'll see you all in the next one. Yeah.